So up until this point, we've been looking at demand and supply and, looking at how it works really well to allocate resources. But this in real life doesn't always happen for various reasons, and this is the start of the new topic called market failure. And this is what your essay will be based on, the 18-mark essay. So nearly a third of the exam, just under a third of the exam, is based on market failure and government intervention. So what happens when the market forces of demand and supply don't work very well? Why don't they sometimes not work very well? And what can the government do to solve these problems? So first of all, let's make sure we know some key definitions. So to understand market failure, we've got to understand what allocative efficiency is and the conditions under which it's achieved, and whether competitive markets will always lead to allocative efficiency. This second objective, discuss, is quite a big objective, and it's covered through all of the market failures that we're going to look at. So it's not just this presentation that you need to watch to have a full understanding of that. So what does efficiency actually mean? Because people use this word, it is used in general conversation. And in economics, there are lots of different types of efficiency. But we talk about two in particular in the AS course. So you may remember, I hope you remember, from the PPC lesson, productive efficiency, so where production takes place using the least amount of scarce resources. So you're producing the maximum output with the resources that you have, or you're using the least amount of scarce resources. We looked at this when we were looking at the production possibility curves, and this definition is just flashed up now of that lesson right at the beginning of the course, and we found that the productively efficient point was anywhere on that curve or frontier. We'll have a look at a diagram of that in a sec. Now, a new type of efficiency that we're going to be looking at a lot more with market failure is allocative efficiency. And the definition that comes in the AS textbook is where consumer satisfaction is maximised. The definition for the A2 course is where price equals marginal cost. Now, that's quite a complicated thing to explain, so I'm not going to explain it for this presentation, but if you just want to learn price equals marginal cost, you can, and you'd get the 2 marks for it. But we'll go into a little bit more detail about, well, what does that actually mean, consumer satisfaction, because that seems a little bit vague. So right at the beginning of the course, we looked at, this basic economic problem, because we can't do absolutely everything we want because we've got scarce resources, land, labour, capital and enterprise. So we have to decide what we're going to do, who's going to get it, how we're going to produce it. Just looking at allocative efficiency still, if we imagine we've got a supply and demand diagram here and the price is set too high, the price is set above the equilibrium quantity and price, we will get a situation where we get excess supply. So there's lots of supply because producers think, I can make quite a bit of profit here, but it's too expensive for most people. So quantity demanded is a lot lower than the quantity supplied. So we have excess supply, and we'd call this allocatively inefficient because we've got a surplus of stock. Remember from previous presentations, it looks like lots and lots of stock on shelves left over and not selling. If the price is set too low, we get excess demand, so there's not very much supply, but there's an excess demand. There's a lot of quantity demanded because it's set too low, so there's a real shortage of products, and that is allocatively inefficient. And eventually, if the market forces are responsive to this, you should head back up to this equilibrium here. There should be upwards pressure on the price, and here there should be downwards pressure on the price to get rid of this excess supply. And you, at the point where demand equals supply, is your allocatively efficient point, and that's what we say. It's very vague, but where customer satisfaction is maximised. Okay, so if we're in disequilibrium, it's not allocatively efficient. So some people are either going without because the price has been set much higher than the equilibrium quantity, or some people here even are going without because the price has been set too low. So customer satisfaction can't possibly be maximised. Going back to productive efficiency, we see that it's on that curve on the PPC there. Okay, so past paper questions. There's been another one actually quite recently, but I'll have a look at this one from May 2011. And it says, define the term allocative efficiency for 2 marks, so where customer satisfaction is maximised or where the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. And using the information in the case study, explain whether the market for purity is working efficiently. Now, I've not pasted in the case study because there were quite a few examples of where you could say it wasn't working efficiently. So there was a lot of volatility in the market, so there wasn't kind of a stable equilibrium, so we could say that that's allocatively inefficient. There was hoarding by the suppliers that were holding on, so there was we could say that there was a bit of excess demand in the market because there was a real shortage of the product. And I think at some point in the case study as well, it mentions that there's this kind of like mass release of some of the products that causes the price to drop quite significantly. So again, kind of evidence there that the price is very volatile and it's not allocatively efficient. And, you know, in the situation where people were hoarding it, there were people that were able to purchase it for the price but weren't able to get their hands on it. And the crash, the mass kind of release of some of this tea would cause a crash in the price, so a lot of volatility there. But have a look through. My best advice for this would be have a look through the mark scheme with that. And I think there was a question either last time, so May 2014, or it would have been May 2013. So have a look through the last few exams for questions like that. Okay, so we know that we may not get a situation where things are allocatively efficient, but we should get a situation where things are allocatively efficient, but sometimes things go wrong. Okay, so only when it's both allocatively and productively efficient do we conclude that scarce resources are being used in the most efficient way. So this is something that OCR call economic efficiency, and inefficiency is where, therefore, resources are not being used in the best possible way. Okay, so where the free market mechanism, and that's just your forces of demand and supply, where that fails to achieve economic efficiency, that's what we call market failure. So the examples that we're really going to look at in this section of the course, we're really looking at allocative inefficiency. Okay, so either too much of the product being supplied or too little of the product being supplied and demanded. So we're going to look at cases of overconsumption and underconsumption, or overproduction and underproduction. Okay, and these are the 5 different types of market failure that you need to know about for this course. So we've got negative externalities, positive externalities, merit goods, demerit goods, and public goods. Now, merit goods and demerit goods are actually caused by something called information failure, which we're going to have a look at in this presentation. But I like to get the students to visualise these. These are the problems. These are like the things that you go to your doctor for. Oh, I've got a cold. Oh, I've got, you know, something wrong with my back. These are the problems, okay, that can happen in your economy. And then these are like the medicines. The government intervention are the solutions. So we've got indirect taxes, we've got subsidies, we've got regulation, we've got education or information, and we've got tradable permits that we're going to have a look at. Now, sometimes these work pretty well and sometimes they don't work very well. It's very much like modern day medicine. You know, they usually do the job, but sometimes there are some side effects. And so if you have that analogy in your mind about, you know, the problems, these are the illnesses, and then these are the medicines, you should find writing your essay a little bit easier. Okay, so on to the first thing. This is a product produced by, I think it's the Coca-Cola company that produced this product. And here we have a billboard advertising delicious and nutritious vitamin water. So obviously suggesting that this in some way is quite a healthy product and it's very nutritious for you. Now, they were banned from using this advert because actually this drink contains a lot of sugar in it, and it's not necessarily what you would call a nutritious type of product. And the Advertising Standards Agency even said that this was misleading for customers. Okay, so this is leading us on to what is information failure. So it's when there's a lack of information and this results in consumers and producers making decisions that don't maximise their welfare. So in short, they make bad decisions because they don't have the information to be able to make good decisions. So why does this occur? Well, there's a few reasons. Consumers or even producers are not aware of the benefits or the harmful effects. They've just not been told, they've not been informed. Maybe you have overly persuasive advertising that makes the product look better than it is. Maybe you have just inaccurate information, so you've been intentionally misled. Or maybe you have something called asymmetric information, where one side, either the consumer or the producer, knows more than the other side. So if we look at asymmetric information, you probably think about it more from your point of view when you're a consumer. So when you're buying products and you're in a shop and maybe someone's trying to sell you the product, sometimes it might cross your mind, is everything this person's saying, this salesperson, is everything true? Are they just giving me the good information? They're not telling me the bad points and things like that. I think when you go and try on clothes in a clothes shop and you're in the changing room and the sales assistant's like, oh, that looks amazing on you, well, yeah, I mean, they're not going to say you look a right mess in that, are they? So asymmetric information going on there. And there's actually a famous economics paper written by this that you can look up, or you will probably look over if you study economics at university, called The Market for Lemons. It's all about secondhand cars. But you do actually producers get asymmetric information as well. So when people, are going for like life insurance kind of policies or health insurance policies, and they're like, oh yes, I run 5 miles a day and I'm super healthy and I don't drink and I don't smoke, and then the insurance agency give them a quote, but they're not always completely sure if this person's giving them the right information or not. So this happens both ways. Okay, so I'm not going to play these videos now, but you can have a look at them. But one of the methods of responding to information failure, and this is not the only method, but this is one method, is to just provide some information. So I think it's called Food for Life. YouTube, adverts are running at the moment, and they get advertised on TV about that you should eat your 5 a day and get more active and get children out doing sports and those types of things, and that's a way to inform people and get them making better decisions. Okay, so specification objectives. What is allocative efficiency? It is where consumer satisfaction is maximised. And what are the conditions under which it's achieved? It's when the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied, and there is an equilibrium in the market. Discuss whether competitive markets always lead to allocative efficiency. Well, that's a very big question, and we're going to answer that in the following presentations, but the short answer is no, it doesn't, because we do get instances with demerit goods and merit goods and negative externalities and positive externalities of where we get allocative inefficiency. Okay, the other specification objective, explain what is meant by market failure in terms of the inefficient use of scarce resources. So we know that market failure is where the free market mechanism fails to achieve economic efficiency. So either it's productively inefficient or allocatively inefficient, or maybe even a mix of the two. And what is meant by information failure? It's where producers or consumers do not have the correct information or do not have the information to be able to maximise their own welfare, so basically to make good decisions. And what happens because of that? Well, we're going to learn about merit goods and demerit goods, but basically people make poor decisions when they don't have all the information available.